Hello guys, welcome. In today's video, we're talking about one of the most important decisions you will make in Dragon Age Veilguard. And it's a decision you're going to be making at the very start of the game. Who will your Rook be? Well, grab yourself a nice warm cup of tea and let's explore. So, choosing who and what our character is going to be is a really major decision that we're mostly going to need to stick with for the rest of the game. So sometimes making that decision can be a pretty long process. I myself spend way too long on customizing my character's appearance alone. And then I haven't even talked about deciding on a name yet. God, names. The most difficult decision of them all. But in this video, I'm going to go over all of the options that are available for our Rook in Dragon Age the Veilguard. I'm also going to be sharing a bit of my thought process when it comes to creating a character, and I'm going to share a little bit of who my Rook is going to be. So hopefully this video will help you make a decision as well. Who is Rook? Rook is our playable protagonist in Dragon Age the Veilguard. They get recruited by Varric and Harding to help them stop Solus from taking down the Veil that he created thousands of years ago. By destroying the Veil, Solus would be able to restore the world of the ancient elven people, but he would also destroy the current world as we know it, which is, not good for us. So now we, Rook, are tasked with gathering a capable team and putting a stop to Solus's plans. As for Rook's name, class, race, and background, these are all choices we get to make. Class and specializations. Our Rook can be either one of three classes: Rogue, Warrior, or Mage. Each class comes with 3 specializations which we can choose at level 20, but can be previewed during character creation. The Rogue has the Duelist, Saboteur, and Veil Ranger specializations. Duelist has the fastest movement out of all Rogue specializations and focuses on dodges, parries, and quick strikes using 2 blades. Saboteur is all about traps and tricks, and the Veil Ranger uses a bow for ranged style combat. The Warrior specializations are Reaper, Slayer, and Champion. Reaper uses a weapon type called Nightblade, which you can use to steal health from your enemies, as well as risk death to gain special abilities. Slayer is the two-handed weapon type warrior, and Champion focuses on tactical defense using a weapon and shield. And finally, the Mage has the Deathcaller, Spellblade, and Evoker specializations. Deathcaller is pretty much a necromancer, Spellblade is the melee mage, focusing more on melee attacks combined with short-range spells, and Evoker is the classic elemental mage, using ice, fire, and lightning spells. A lot of these specializations can be thematically linked to one of the factions, like Deathcaller to Mournwatch or Veil Ranger to Veil Jumpers, but none of the classes and specializations are locked to faction or race. Any combination is possible, with the exception of Mage Dwarf, of course. While you can't change class mid-game, you can respec your specialization. If you picked Saboteur as your Rogue specialization at level 20 and later find out this might not actually be your style, you can swap to Veil Ranger or Duelist for free. This allows us to play around with different builds as much as we like. Lineage and Appearance. For our Rook's lineage, we can choose from each of the 4 playable races: Human, Elf, Dwarf, and Qunari. After we've chosen our Rook's race, we can start to customize them. The character creator lets us choose from a bunch of presets for the body and face, and then allows us to fully customize those. There are body and height sliders, and sliders for different face and body parts. There are tons of new hairstyles, including long and curly hairstyles, and on top of the usual options for things like skin tone, hair color, and eye color, we also get to customize details like scars, freckles, eyebrows, beards, vitiligo, heterochromia, Qunari horns, asymmetry, and much, much more. We get to choose our Rook's body type, voice, and pronouns separately from each other. There are 4 voices to choose from, which can also be pitch shifted. 2 feminine and 2 masculine voices, each having a British and an American option. The available pronouns are he, him, she, her, and they, them. We can also choose a custom first name for our Rook, and if we can't think of any, we do have an option of picking a first name from a randomizer. Rook also has a last name, but I will talk more about that later in the video. The character creator also offers a few different lighting options so we can see how our Rook looks in different lighting. But if we do happen to change our mind on our Rook's appearance later on, or want to show the passage of time by adding scars or changing hairstyles for example, the game lets us change our character's appearance whenever we want. And finally, our starting gear and casual clothes, which depend on class and starting faction, as well as aspirational armor, which is mid to late game armor, can be previewed in the character creator as well. Faction and last names. There are 6 different factions that we can choose for our Rook. Grey Wardens, Antivan Crows, Mournwatch, Lords of Fortune, Shadow Dragons, and Veil Jumpers. I'm going to give you a brief summary of each, but if you want to know more about their organization, their history, and their involvement in the series, I highly recommend you check out my Introducing the Factions video, where I go over each of them in a bit more detail. But for now, the Grey Wardens are an ancient order sworn to protect Thedas against Darkspawn and defeat the Blight. Their very secretive joining ritual gives them unique abilities. In the Veilguard, choosing to be a Grey Warden will give you Blight Killer, which makes you deal increased damage against Darkspawn. Vigilant Training gives you a higher base defense and health stat, and Bonded in Blood makes you gain reputation with the Grey Wardens quicker. The Antivan Crows are an order of assassins originating from Antiva. If you choose to be an Antivan Crow, the Open Contract buff gives you increased damage against the Antam, which is what the Kunari military is called. Hidden Pouch gives you an extra potion slot, and Under Their Wing makes you gain reputation with the Crows more quickly. The Mournwatch are the protectors of Navarra's Grand Necropolis. They practice necromancy and know how to handle spirits and the undead. Their Return to the Grave buff gives you increased damage against undead and demons, Acute Afflictions allows you to apply an additional affliction stack on targets, and Recognized Name makes you gain reputation with Mournwatchers more quickly. The Lords of Fortune are explorers, monster hunters, and treasure seekers from Ravane. Their Healthy Competition buff makes you deal more damage against mercenaries. With their Relentless ability, you can perform takedowns on enemies with slightly less effort. And Together in Glory makes you gain reputation with the Lords of Fortune quicker. The Shadow Dragons are a Tevinter resistance group fighting to bring justice to the people and defeat corrupt magisters. They are known to help former slaves. If your Rook is a Shadow Dragon, Never to Rise will make them deal increased damage against Venatori. Resourceful gives you a slightly faster regeneration of your class-specific resource, and Light in the Dark makes you gain reputation with the Shadow Dragons more quickly. The Veil Jumpers are explorers of ancient ruins in the Arlatan Forest. Veil Jumper Rooks get Attuned Strikes, which makes them deal increased damage versus Fade-touched enemies. Keen Eye makes you deal slightly increased crit and weak point damage, and Close to the Veil makes you gain reputation with the Veil Jumpers more quickly. Not only do you get faction-specific abilities, but the faction you choose also determines your Rook's last name. Each faction comes with a specific last name for your Rook. A Grey Warden Rook's last name is Thorn, an Antivan Crow's last name is Deriva, which, by the way, means your Rook is part of the same house as Viago, which is pretty cool. A Mournwatcher Rook is called Ingelvar, a Lord of Fortune Rook gets the name Ladir, Shadow Dragons get Merkar, and Veil Jumpers get Aldweir. All pretty nice names, I think. And I think Aldweir and Ingelvad are my favorites, just because I think they sound really cool. And if any of these pronunciations are incorrect, I'm sorry, I tried. Difficulty. If you are someone that likes to take into account the difficulty you're going to be playing on when creating a character, the Veilguard will have a bunch of different difficulties. Storyteller. A difficulty that really focuses more on story, and has very forgiving combat. Keeper. A balanced combat experience for people that like action and adventure. Emphasizes on party composition and equipment choices over reaction times. Adventurer. A balanced experience that places equal emphasis on combat, party composition, and equipment choices. Underdog. This one gives you more of a challenge. Overcome pushing odds and save the world from unforgiving enemies. Nightmare. Here for brutality. Get overwhelming battles that give no quarter. Requires mastery of combat, equipment, and skills to survive. Unbound. This one lets you fully customize all settings. My Rook and my thought process when creating a character. Everyone's got their own way of creating a character. Maybe you sketch them out a couple times first, maybe you base their personality on other characters you like, or maybe you just make it all up as you go. I'm going to share a bit of my thought process and the things that I do when I create a character. So, oftentimes when I create a character, I tend to focus on some very specific details that I want the character to have. Some very specific character traits, specific things in their design, like how they wear their hair, scars, freckles, etc. And sometimes also a very specific thing that happened to them in their past. As I develop my character further, I will start to fill in the larger blanks between those details. In general, I find it easier to work out my character's personality further when I know what they're going to look like. So I will often sketch or draw my character, and as I am finishing their design, I will also finalize their personality. Thinking of a character's background and motivations and reasons for why they are the way they are can also really help you fully define your character. This is something I really enjoy doing, but it's also something I struggle with sometimes because I can be a bit of a perfectionist, even when it comes to things that literally no one else but me will ever see or read. Sometimes I just want my character to be a certain way because I want to explore that certain kind of personality for them. But I also want them to have a reason for being that way, and an arc so that they can learn and grow. For example, my canon warden in Dragon Age Origins starts out very naive and bright-eyed about the outside world. She's always been a good apprentice, followed the rules, and yet she's always had this thought in the back of her mind, this feeling deep down of wanting to be free and see the world beyond the tower. While she has a few vague memories of her life before, she has no idea what it's actually like to live in that world. Leaving the tower and starting her life as a Grey Warden is just the start of a new big adventure to her, as a free mage. However, through the course of her journey, she comes to the realization that life outside the tower might not be as wonderful as she thought it would be. And sure, she is free from the mage tower now, but as a Grey Warden, how free is she really? She never regrets leaving the tower and becoming a Grey Warden, but these are all things she needs to learn to live with now. She was young and naive, and her view of the world was more akin to a world from a child's fantasy story. And now she needs to learn to live with the harsh reality that this world can be cruel, and people don't always have the best intentions. I love making up these kind of character arcs and backstories for my characters, especially in settings that I love. I've done this for all my Dragon Age characters, especially for my canon ones. I've made up entire backstories for them detailing where they're from, how they lived, relationships, struggles. I think of so many things that I sometimes forget half of it if I don't write it down. Which is another thing that might help you when it comes to creating a character. Write things down. I'm still in the process of writing down the full backstories for my canon Dragon Age characters, but I have written down some neat little details for each of them, like their full names, height, ages, and even their birth dates. Yeah, that's how much I think about my characters. Please don't judge me. I also like to take inspiration from my own personal experience or things that happened around me. All of my Dragon Age characters have a small part of me or are based on a version of me, whether that's personality, experience, or appearance. This way, they're all still a unique character, but also still personal to me, if that makes sense. It's what I usually do for first playthroughs as well. Speaking of which, I don't always have a clear idea of what my character is going to be like when I start my first playthrough. My Inquisitor is a good example, as she actually went through a few iterations. I had a general idea of her personality and background, but it actually took me 1 or 2 playthroughs to really figure out the finer details of who I wanted her to be. And that counts for you too. If you're still not sure about who you want your Rook to be, maybe your first playthrough will help you get a better idea. As for my Rook, I started with her design. Fun fact, I actually thought of a design and name for her ages ago, back when we still called the game Dragon Age 4. I ended up liking her design and name so much that I based one of my D&D characters on it. In that same vein, I also used the Baldur's Gate 3 character creator back in early access to try and create my Dragon Age 4 character. And again, ended up liking her so much that I just turned her into my Baldur's Gate 3 character. I'm going to stick with the overall design I gave her, but since I've used her original name Mira for my Baldur's Gate 3 character, I'm not sure yet if I'm going to keep it or change it. Anyway, here's a quick sketch I made of her a while back. she's going to be an elven mage, surprise surprise. Her specialization is going to be Evoker, as I always really enjoy elemental magic, and her faction is going to be a Lords of Fortune. I have been pretty torn on the faction part, I'm not gonna lie. They're all really interesting and seem like they could have some great reactivity. But I am going to stick with the Lords of Fortune, as I think that just fits best with her backstory. Plus, I love the fantasy of exploring ancient ruins and collecting shiny trinkets. Which, now that I say that out loud, the Veil Jumpers would actually be a pretty good fit as well. No, I'm not changing it. I am determined. Anyway, let's move on before I change my mind. As for her personality, I wanted her to be different from my other canon Dragon Age characters. My Warden, Inquisitor, and even my Hawk to some extent are all more on the optimistic side. My Rook, on the other hand, I wanted her to have more of a practical attitude, a bit of a cynical outlook, and she tends to focus on the past a little too much sometimes. She does have an emotional side as well, but prefers to keep that to herself and usually avoids talking about it. Since regret is one of the main themes in Veilguard, I wanted to incorporate that into my Rook's backstory as well. Her regret is mostly centered around promises left unfulfilled and words left unspoken. The regret of not being able to do more. The way she copes with that regret is by throwing herself into dangerous expeditions and big causes, like the Lords of Fortune and now stopping Solus. She is distracting herself and trying to find purpose in a way. My idea for her character arc is having her learn how to deal with that regret and pain and grief in a proper way, instead of avoiding her emotions, and have her learn not to hold on to the past so much and focus more on the present. The people she meets and the friends she makes will make her realize that the world isn't always as bad as it seems. At least, that's the plan. I'll need to wait and see how much room the game gives me to explore that kind of character arc and how much is left up for interpretation. Events in the game and interactions with other characters might inspire me to change parts of her arc and backstory. But I'll try to stick with this as much as possible and we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's everything I have to say about our Rook. Hopefully, this video helped you make up your mind about who your Rook is going to be. And if not, I hope you enjoyed it either way. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, let me know by liking this video. Or leave a comment and tell me all about your Rooks. And which of the last names is your favorite? Special thanks to my patrons. Your support truly means a lot to me. If you also want to support the channel, check out my Patreon. If you want to have a chat sometime, feel free to join my Discord server. That's it for now though. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.